What happens when a daytime television interview spirals so far out of control that security has to be called? What happens when America's sweetheart finds herself in the middle of a royal meltdown that leaves everyone speechless? Today, we're diving into the explosive confrontation between Prince Harry and Kelly Clarkson that had the entire studio, audience gasping and producers scrambling behind the scenes. This is the untold story of how a simple promotional interview turned into television chaos. Make sure to subscribe and let me know in the comments what you think really triggered this entire situation. The Kelly Clarkson Show was supposed to be a safe space. Known for her warm interviews and genuine connection with guests, Kelly had built a reputation as one of the most trusted hosts in daytime television. Her ability to make even the most guarded celebrities open up had made her show a go-to destination for major promotional tours. So when Prince Harry's team reached out to discuss his latest charitable initiative, everyone expected another heartwarming conversation about his work with veterans and mental health advocacy. The morning of the taping, everything seemed normal. Prince Harry arrived at the studio with his usual security detail, greeting staff members with his characteristic charm. Kelly, fresh from her morning prep session, was excited about the interview. She had prepared thoughtful questions about his foundation work and his life in California, the kind of softball material that typically made for engaging television without crossing any uncomfortable lines. "I'm really looking forward to this," Kelly told her producer as they did final sound checks. "He's always been so genuine in his interviews. I think our audience will really connect with what he's doing now." The interview started exactly as planned. Kelly's opening was warm and welcoming, her signature style putting guests at ease within moments. "We're here with Prince Harry, and I have to say, every time I see you, you just seem more and more comfortable in your own skin. How are you feeling about everything you're building here in America?" Prince Harry settled into his chair, appearing relaxed and ready to promote his latest project. "Thank you for having me, Kelly. It's been an incredible journey, and I'm really excited to talk about the work we're doing with veterans." The response has been overwhelming. "That's what I love to hear," Kelly responded, her genuine enthusiasm evident. "Tell us about this new initiative. I know it's close to your heart." For the first 10 minutes, everything proceeded smoothly. Prince Harry spoke passionately about his work, sharing personal stories about veterans he'd met and the impact their programs were having. Kelly asked follow-up questions that showed she'd done her homework, creating the kind of meaningful dialogue that made great television. But then Kelly decided to ask about something that had been making headlines. "I have to ask, and I hope you don't mind, but there's been a lot of speculation about your relationship with your family back in England. I know our audience would love to hear your perspective on finding balance between your new life and maintaining those important family connections." The change in Prince Harry's demeanor was immediate. His relaxed posture shifted, and something flickered across his expression that the cameras caught perfectly. "Kelly, I thought we were here to talk about the important work we're doing for veterans, not to rehash tabloid gossip." Kelly, still maintaining her professional composure, tried to navigate back to safer ground. "Of course, and the work you're doing is incredible. I just thought, since you've been so open about your journey, that maybe you'd want to share how you balance everything. Our viewers really admire your authenticity." "My authenticity?" Prince Harry's voice carried an edge that hadn't been there moments before. "Is that what we're calling it now? Look, I appreciate what you're trying to do here, but I came on this show to talk about veterans, not to feed the media machine that's been destroying my family for decades." The studio audience, who had been warmly receptive just minutes earlier, fell silent. Kelly's producer, watching from the control room, felt his stomach drop. This wasn't the direction anyone had expected the interview to take. Kelly, drawing on years of experience handling difficult moments, tried to diffuse the situation. "Harry, I completely understand, and I respect that. Why don't we get back to talking about the Veterans Program? I know you have some amazing stories to share, but Prince Harry wasn't ready to let it go. Do you, though? Do you really understand? Because from where I'm sitting, it feels like every interview, every conversation, every attempt to do something positive gets twisted into questions about family drama and palace intrigue. I'm trying to build something meaningful here, and all anyone wants to talk about is the past." The tension in the studio was palpable. Kelly's usual warm demeanor remained, but those who knew her well could see the slight tightness around her eyes. The way her hands gripped her note cards, just a little too firmly. She had navigated thousands of interviews, but this was uncharted territory. "I hear you," Kelly said carefully, "and I want to be respectful of your boundaries. But I also think our audience connects with your story because it's about growth and moving forward. That's actually really inspiring." Prince Harry leaned forward, his voice dropping to a more intense level. "Inspiring, Kelly? Let me tell you what's inspiring. What's inspiring is the veteran who came to our center last week, who hadn't spoken to anyone about his PTSD for 3 years. What's inspiring is the single mother who's been struggling to reintegrate after her deployment and finally found a support system. That's what I want to talk about. That's what matters. And that's exactly what we should be talking about," Kelly agreed, trying to steer the conversation back on track. "Tell us about that veteran. What was that moment like for you?" When something had shifted fundamentally in the dynamic. Prince Harry's frustration seemed to be building rather than subsiding. "You know what, Kelly? I think there's something we need to address here. This whole industry, this whole system of celebrity interviews and promotional tours, it's all designed to extract something from people. You want the personal story, the family drama, the behind-the-scenes details. But what if I don't want to give that to you?" Kelly's professional mask slipped just slightly. "Harry, I think you might be misunderstanding what we're trying to do here. This is about celebrating your work and sharing your message with people who want to support it." "Is it, though?" Prince Harry's voice was rising now, and the studio audience was shifting uncomfortably in their seats. "Or is it about ratings and clicks and giving people something to talk about at the water cooler tomorrow?" The producer in the control room was frantically signaling to Kelly, but she was on her own now, live in front of an audience, trying to manage a situation that was spiraling beyond anyone's control. Kelly felt the weight of every eye in the studio on her. Years of live television had taught her to think quickly, but this was different. This wasn't a technical malfunction or a forgotten line. This was a guest actively challenging the very foundation of what they were doing there. "Harry," she said, her voice steady, but with a slight tremor that only the most perceptive viewers would catch. "I think we both want the same thing here. We want to shine a light on important work and help people. That's what this show has always been about." Prince Harry sat back in his chair, his arms crossed, studying Kelly's face with an intensity that made the cameras seem intrusive. "Do we, though? Because I've been doing this for years, Kelly. I've sat in these chairs, answered these questions, played this game, and at the end of the day, what gets reported, what gets shared, it's never the substance, it's always the drama." "That's not fair," Kelly replied, and for the first time, there was a defensive edge to her voice. "We've featured hundreds of guests talking about their causes, their work, their passions. Our audience cares about these things. They care about..." "What you doing then? Why did you bring up my family?" Prince Harry shot back. "If this is really about the veterans, if this is really about the work, then why did we have to go there? Why does every single interview have to touch on the palace, the drama, the relationships?" The studio audience was completely silent now, hanging on every word. This wasn't the comfortable, feel-good television they'd come to expect from Kelly's show. This was raw, unfiltered conflict, playing out in real time. Kelly took a deep breath, her media training kicking in. "Because, Harry, whether you like it or not, your personal story is part of what makes your advocacy work powerful. People connect with your journey because it's relatable. The family struggles, the personal growth, the courage to make difficult choices. That's what makes people listen when you talk about mental health and veterans issues. Relatable." Prince Harry's voice cracked slightly. "Kelly, you have no idea what you're talking about. My family struggles aren't relatable. They're not entertainment. They're not content for your show. They're real people, real relationships, real pain that gets dissected and analyzed and commodified every single day." The producer in the control room was making frantic hand signals, but Kelly couldn't look away from her guest. Something was happening here that went beyond a difficult interview. This felt personal, raw, like years of frustration were finally finding their outlet. "I understand that," Kelly said, her voice softer now. "I really do. But Harry, you've chosen to be public about these things. You've written about them, talked about them in other interviews. I'm not asking you to reveal secrets or betray confidences. I'm asking you to share your perspective on something you've already made public." Prince Harry stood up abruptly, his microphone wire pulling taut. "That's exactly the problem, Kelly. Just because I've shared something doesn't mean it's open season. Just because I've talked about my struggles doesn't mean every interview should be therapy session for public consumption. Sit down, Harry, Kelly said firmly, her authority as a host finally asserting itself. We're in the middle of a live show. We can work this out, can we? Prince Harry remained standing, his voice getting louder. Because I'm getting really tired of being told what I should be comfortable discussing. I'm tired of being managed and handled and having my boundaries ignored because it makes for good television. The audience was visibly uncomfortable now. Some people looking around nervously, others pulling out their phones to record what was clearly becoming a viral moment. Kelly's warm, welcoming studio had transformed into something else entirely. Harry, please, Kelly said, standing up herself now. Let's take a breath here. We both care about important causes. We both want to help people. Let's find a way to do that together. Together. Prince Harry laughed, but there was no humor in it. Kelly, do you know how many times I've heard that word? Let's work together. Let's find common ground. Let's make this work for everyone. But it's never really together, is it? It's always on someone else's terms. That's not true, Kelly protested, her own frustration finally showing. I've been nothing but respectful to you. I've given you a platform to talk about your work. I've asked thoughtful questions. I've tried to create a space where you could share your message. Your space, Prince Harry emphasized. Your show, your rules, your agenda. And when I try to set a boundary, when I try to say, this is what I'm comfortable discussing, suddenly I'm being difficult. Suddenly I'm the problem. Kelly's producer was now standing in the wings, clearly debating whether to call for a commercial break, but Kelly, perhaps sensing that this moment was bigger than her show, pressed on. You know what, Harry? Maybe you are being difficult. Maybe you're so used to having everything your way that you can't handle a simple interview question. Maybe the problem isn't the media. Maybe it's you. The words hung in the air like a physical presence. The studio audience gasped collectively. Kelly's eyes widened slightly, as if she couldn't quite believe what she'd just said, but she didn't. Take it back? Prince Harry stared at her for a long moment, his face cycling through several emotions. When he finally spoke, his voice was dangerously quiet. Excuse me, I said maybe you're the problem, Kelly repeated, her voice stronger now. Maybe you're so busy being the victim of the media machine that you can't see when someone is actually trying to help you. Maybe you're so focused on protecting yourself that you've forgotten how to have a genuine conversation. A genuine conversation. Prince Harry's voice was rising again. Kelly, you want genuine? Here's genuine. I came on this show as a favor to your producers. I rearranged my schedule. I prepared talking points about veteran suicide rates and PTSD treatment programs. I was ready to have a meaningful discussion about issues that actually matter. But instead, I get ambushed with family drama questions and then lectured about being difficult when I try to redirect the conversation. Kelly stepped closer to him, her own anger now fully visible. Nobody ambushed you, Harry. I asked one question about balance. One question about how you manage your new life with your family relationships. That's not an ambush. That's a normal, human conversation. Normal. Prince Harry's voice cracked. Kelly, nothing about my life is normal. Nothing about my family is normal. Nothing about having every conversation, every relationship, every private moment turned into public speculation is normal. So, no, I don't want to talk about balance. I don't want to talk about family relationships. I want to talk about veterans who are dying by suicide at rates that should horrify every person watching this show. The studio had become a pressure cooker. Kelly's audience, used to inspirational stories and celebrity cooking segments, was witnessing something unprecedented. The tension was so thick, it felt like the air itself was vibrating. Fine, Kelly said, her voice tight with controlled anger. Let's talk about veterans. But don't you dare stand there and lecture me about what matters when you can't even handle a simple question about your own life. Don't you dare make me the villain because you're too fragile to have an adult conversation. Prince Harry's face went white. Did you just call me fragile? If the shoe fits? Kelly shot back. And in that moment, both host and guest crossed a line that would change everything. The word fragile seemed to echo through the studio like a gunshot. Prince Harry's entire demeanor shifted in that instant, his face flushing with a combination of anger and something that looked almost like hurt. The cameras caught every micro-expression, every subtle change in his posture as he processed what Kelly had just said. "Fragile," he repeated slowly, his voice barely above a whisper. "You think I'm fragile, Kelly?" Kelly realized immediately that she had crossed a line, but her own anger was too strong to pull back now. "I think you're someone who can't handle being challenged. I think you're someone who's gotten so used to people walking on eggshells around you that you've forgotten how to have a real conversation." "A real conversation?" Prince Harry's voice was getting louder with each word. "You want a real conversation? Let's have one. Let's talk about how you built your career on being relatable. On being the girl next door who understands regular people, but here you are, in your multi-million-dollar studio, lecturing me about being out of touch." Kelly's eyes flashed. "Don't you dare turn this around on me. I've worked for everything I have. I've been honest with my audience about my struggles, my failures, my growth. I don't hide behind titles and handlers and carefully crafted public statements." "Hide?" Prince Harry stepped closer to her, his voice rising to a level that made several audience members visibly flinch. "You think I'm hiding, Kelly? I've been more transparent about my mental health struggles than any public figure in history. I've talked about therapy, about medication, about suicidal thoughts. I've opened up about family trauma and personal relationships in ways that have cost me everything. And you're calling me fragile?" "Yes, I am," Kelly shot back, her own voice now matching his volume, because someone who was actually strong wouldn't melt down over one simple question about family balance. Someone who was actually courageous wouldn't throw a tantrum when asked to have a normal human conversation. The studio audience was now openly uncomfortable, some people getting up from their seats, others recording with their phones. The producer was frantically trying to get her attention, but she was locked in this confrontation with Prince Harry, both of them beyond the point of professional courtesy. "A tantrum." Prince Harry's voice cracked with disbelief. "Kelly, I came here to talk about veterans who are struggling with PTSD, who are contemplating suicide, who need resources and support. And you're calling my attempt to stay focused on that important work a tantrum?" "No," Kelly said, her voice dangerously quiet now. "I'm calling your inability to answer one question about your personal life a tantrum. I'm calling your need to control every aspect of this conversation a tantrum. I'm calling your complete lack of respect for me, my show, and my audience a tantrum." Prince Harry stared at her for a long moment, his chest rising and falling rapidly. When he spoke again, his voice was different, colder, more controlled. "You know what, Kelly? You're right about one thing. I do have a lack of respect. I have a lack of respect for people who pretend to care about important causes while actually caring about ratings. I have a lack of respect for hosts who ambush their guests and then play victim when called out. And I have a complete lack of respect for this entire industry that turns human suffering into entertainment." "Then why are you here?" Kelly demanded. "Why did you come on my show if you have so little respect for what we do? Why did you agree to this interview if you think it's all so meaningless?" "Because I was naive enough to think this might be different," Prince Harry replied, his voice heavy with disappointment. "I was stupid enough to believe that maybe, just maybe, there was still a place in media where the message mattered more than the messenger, where the cause mattered more than the controversy." Kelly laughed, but it was a bitter sound. "Oh, that's rich. You're disappointed in me. You're disappointed in my show. Harry, you've spent the last 20 minutes attacking everything I've built, everything I stand for, and now you're disappointed. You came here with an agenda, and when I didn't follow your script perfectly, you decided to blow everything up." "My script?" Prince Harry's voice was incredulous. "Kelly, my script was talking about veteran suicide prevention. My script was discussing mental health resources. My script was trying to help people who are actually struggling. Your script was family drama and personal revelations." "One question. I asked you one question about balance, and you turned it into World War III. One question about how you manage your relationships while building your new life. And you acted like I was asking for state secrets, because that one question represents everything that's wrong with this industry," Prince Harry said, his voice getting louder again. "It represents the fact that you can't just let the work speak for itself. It represents the fact that every conversation has to be about me, about my personal life, about my relationships. It represents the fact that the veterans I'm trying to help become secondary to the soap opera you want to create." Kelly stepped even closer to him, her face flushed with anger. "You want to know what's wrong with this industry, Harry? It's guests who think they can come on someone else's show and dictate the terms. It's people who think they're too important to be asked normal questions. It's entitled Behavior Disguised as Principled Stands. Entitled." Prince Harry's voice was now loud enough that the audience could hear him clearly without his microphone. "Kelly, I've given up everything. I've walked away from my family, my country, my entire identity to try to build something meaningful. And you're calling me entitled because I don't want to turn my personal relationships into content for your show." "Yes," Kelly said firmly. "I'm calling you entitled because you think you get to decide what questions are appropriate in an interview. I'm calling you entitled because you think your causes are more important than having a genuine conversation with the people who want to support you." Prince Harry ripped off his microphone and threw it on the floor. "You know what, Kelly? I'm done. I'm done with this conversation. I'm done with this show. And I'm done with people like you who think they have the right to pry into every aspect of someone's life for entertainment. People like me." Kelly's voice was dangerously quiet now. "What exactly do you mean by that, Harry?" "I mean people who build careers on other people's pain," Prince Harry said, his voice filled with disgust. "People who pretend to care about important causes while actually caring about ratings and viral moments. People who think they deserve access to every private thought and feeling because they have a television show." Kelly stood there for a moment, visibly shaking with anger. When she spoke, her voice was ice cold. "Get out." "What?" I said, "Get out. Get out of my studio. Get out of my show. Get out of my space." Kelly turned to face the audience and the cameras. "Ladies and gentlemen, this interview is over. Security, please escort our guest out of the building." Prince Harry stared at her. "In disbelief, you're having me removed from the building." "I'm having you removed from my show," Kelly said firmly. "You've been disrespectful, you've been disruptive, and you've been completely inappropriate. This is my studio, my show, and my decision." 2 security guards were already moving toward the stage. Prince Harry looked around the studio at the audience members who were now openly recording, at the cameras that had captured every moment of this confrontation, at Kelly, who stood there with her arms crossed, waiting for him to leave. "This is unbelievable," he said, but his voice had lost its earlier fire. "This is absolutely unbelievable." "What's unbelievable is your behavior," Kelly replied. "What's unbelievable is that you thought you could come on my show and treat me like this. What's unbelievable is that you think you're the victim here." As the security guards reached the stage, Prince Harry held up his hands. "Don't touch me. I'll leave on my own." He turned back to Kelly one last time. "You know what? Kelly, you're right. I am disappointed. I'm disappointed in you. I'm disappointed in this industry. And I'm disappointed in myself for thinking it could be different." He walked toward the exit, his security detail quickly flanking him. The studio audience sat in stunned silence, unsure whether to applaud or remain quiet. Kelly stood alone on the stage, her chest rising and falling rapidly, her face a mixture of anger, shock, and something that might have been regret. As Prince Harry reached the exit, he turned back one final time. "For what it's worth, Kelly, the veterans I work with, they're not fragile. They're the strongest people I know. They just needed someone to listen to them without trying to turn their pain into entertainment." And with that, he was gone. Kelly, standing alone in front of her audience, the cameras still rolling. The weight of what had just happened settling over the studio like a heavy blanket, Kelly looked out at her audience, then directly into the camera. "We'll be right back after this break," she said, her voice barely steady. But as the cameras cut away, everyone knew that nothing would ever be quite the same again. So what do you think really caused this entire situation to spiral so completely out of control? Was it Kelly's question about family balance, or was there something deeper going on? Subscribe to the channel and let me know in the comments. What do you think was the real breaking point that turned a simple interview into television chaos?